Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judy, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the 14-Yard NFL Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast. I'm your host Sam Moores, and week 14 has just finished, and I think it's safe to say that it was probably the best slate yet this year. It was brilliant. We had loads of shocks, some defining moments as well for some teams, and we now have a tighter than ever playoff picture with only 4 games remaining for each team. And we'll start with one of the biggest shocks, where the Titans upset the Dolphins on a Monday Night Football doubleheader. And it was looking like, with a little bit of luck on their side, the Dolphins were going to reclaim the AFC 1 seed back from the Ravens with a win over the Titans. But the Titans overturned a 2-touchdown deficit to win the game in unlikely fashion, with the Titans frustrating an injury-riddled Miami pretty much all game, limiting them to no offensive TD in the first 3 quarters, and they had the lead at halftime too. But a muff punt followed by a miscommunication between Will Levis and Derrick Henry gave Miami really favourable field position to go and score 2 quick touchdowns to essentially ice the game in the fourth quarter with 3 minutes remaining. Unfortunately for the Dolphins, then Will Levis and DeAndre Hopkins stepped up as Vic Fangio's defense faltered, allowing 2 touchdowns for the Titans in the final 3 minutes, being the first team to do that since 2016. And the game finished with a Harold Landry 4th down sack of Tua Tagovailoa, with the Dolphins needing a field goal at near midfield. So things would have gone very, very differently if there was one play here or there. And from the very first drive, things weren't going the Dolphins' way whatsoever. Xavier Howard, Jalen Waddle, Connor Williams, and Tyreek Hill, 4 of their most key players, all went out of injuries in the first quarter. And when the first 2 came back pretty quickly, Tyreek Hill's missing presence was glaring, and he didn't return until late in the third quarter either. And unfortunately for the Dolphins, it looks like Connor Williams is at their centre, of course. He's on an all-pro level this year. He is feared to be out for the season now of a serious knee injury, and you can tell the difference between him and Liam Eichenberg at centre in this game. In fact, the offensive line was just a huge factor in general. It's hardly surprising as well when you're missing 4 out of 5 offensive linemen who started the season in this game. It's how the Titans won this game. They got to Tua. They sacked him 5 times. That's 22% of the sacks he's had all season. He's taken all season, came in this game, and it's the most in a game that the Dolphins have given up in a season. This season as well. So that's pretty damning stuff. Hopefully Tyreek's injury is nothing too serious. I stand by it. I think he's the MVP of football right now. If anything, last night probably proved it. He is Miami's offense. I'm a big fan of Tua, and we've come a long way for this to be considered an off night for Tua as well. If you look at his box score, he had a good game compared to what he had in his first couple of years. But it's just clear how much Tyreek Hill adds to this offense. The run game is good. We found out this year. They ran all over the Titans with Mostert and Achane, but the Titans were sort of begging them to do that with the way they set up on defense. But for me, this team has a very glaring need, and that was evident last night as well, and that's a red zone target. Miami have left so many points on the table, not only in this game, which they left quite a few, but also in other games too, within the 10-yard line especially. And I think part of it is Mike McDaniel going away from the run a little bit. I think he can get very pass heavy, which has cost the Dolphins at points in the last couple of years. And I think also it's a lack of size. When I think Tua is probably the tallest skill position player in the offense, which is other than Darius Smythe, who's more of a blocking tight end. That's quite a big problem, I think. So I just if I'm Miami, I would be heavily pursuing Zach Ertz or another tight end in the market. Obviously he's available and he wants to sign with a contender. That's what I would be doing, but I don't know if they do that or not. It's clear they are lacking a tight end because they've tried all these projects, from drafting Elijah Higgins, trying to think could be a tight end, to bringing in Chase Claypool, but none of those guys had an impact, and Higgins got cut after training camp. So I don't think I think they are still looking for that red zone target. but that being said, the Titans are just a better team from start to finish. I wouldn't overreact too much on Miami. I think the Titans just had a very good game. I think that's probably the best they've looked all season. I think it really was. There's a lot of talk that Vrabel could be fired this season, but from this game plan alone, I just, by him and his defensive staff, I just think that's I think it should be kept. I think that's just madness. His decision to put pressure on Miami by going for two late, on their first touchdown really paid off too. There's no guarantees that he'd make it on the second touchdown. So I think the Titans were excellent with their own game decisions yesterday, and that's no reason why they won this game. And I also think that their offensive staff are doing a great job too with Will Levis. He looked awesome last night. He bounced back from his pick six to Zach Cedar at the start of the game, and I think he looked really good. Obviously, he's got a great weapon in Hopkins. Having Traylon Burks back in there, I mean, he didn't really make an impact this game, but he certainly, having his presence in there certainly allows for DeAndre Hopkins to get open more. And obviously that crossing route to DeAndre Hopkins in just before the 2-minute warning was it was a very good play, and also it helped launch the Titans downfield. I just sort of, with Miami, I wouldn't overreact too much. Everyone drops these games, especially with all those injuries. Let's not forget that they pretty much had their entire offensive line out in this game. They were about Tyreek Hill for a lot of it as well. But this game could be the game that cost them the 1 seed before their game with the Ravens on New Year's Eve. And it could prove costly for that. But I wouldn't overreact to the Dolphins. This Dolphins lost too much. And for the Titans, well, they were a very, very well coached team. And I feel like they may have their quarterback, once they can sort out the rest of the roster, I really do think from what I saw last night, they could be a problem in the AFC in a few years' time, maybe even next year. You never know. Wow, just what a shock to start the podcast. Of course, this was going to be very, very down on the in the running order. The Dolphins are 13.5-point favourites going into this one, but the Titans won by that one point, and they've shot the Dolphins, who now go to 9-4, one game behind Baltimore, and obviously the 2 seed now in the AFC. We'll go over to Sunday Night Football now, where Dallas moved up to the number 2 seed in the NFC and took the lead of the NFC East with a big win over their rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cowboys got out to an early lead, and the Eagles, we could just never quite recover from that, to be honest with you. We said on Friday the battle between the Cowboys defense and the Philadelphia offense would be crucial, and the Dallas defense firmly won that duel. They forced 3 turnovers, and the Eagles' only touchdown was a Jalen Carter fumble recovery after Fletcher Colt strip-sacked Dak Prescott. Dak, I think, may have won MVP last night too. As well, I say last night, obviously Sunday feels like last night. I think he needed a signature win to sort of have that case, and that certainly was a signature win. He was good again, 271 yards and 2 touchdowns in the air, another good PFF grade as well. And as for the Eagles, they are really starting to worry me now, because they're showing that if they can't get out to a hot start, they're vulnerable. That's how they've lost all their games this season. And they do send, they sort of have a bit of a lull in the first half, and sometimes in the second half they can come back, and they have come back in many games in the second half this year, but they couldn't do it in this game. They scored no second half points. So Dallas did really manage to beat the Eagles here. On the other hand, I'm wondering, could this be the Cowboys team that wins the Super Bowl? For me, they have literally everything to do so. They've got a decent enough run game, which is good in the playoffs, a good secondary, a pass rush that is literally the current defensive player of the year favourite in Micah Parsons, a wide receiver trio that's starting to come on as well, with Brandon Cooks and Mark Gallup making plays, as well as CeeDee Lamb in there. You've got an offensive line that are really, really good. You've got a red zone tight end target in Jake Ferguson, who's having a great season, and a quarterback who is the current MVP favourite. That is everything you need to win football games, and Dallas have all of it. And I really, really get excited watching this team sometimes. I thought they were brilliant again on Sunday night. Since their bye week in week 8, they've probably been the best team in football, I think that's why they're my Super Bowl favourite after this win. They just, for me, are the complete package, and I can't wait to see them in the next couple of games, because they have got a tough schedule coming up too, just to sort of hopefully confirm what I feel. either way, it does spice up the NFC playoff picture. As I said, the Eagles have pretty much led the conference until now from start to finish of the season. The Niners had a little bit as a 1 seed as well, but the Niners have now reclaimed the lead, having beaten both of these teams that are now 10-3. So you've got 3 teams at the top at 10-3, and you've got the Lions at 9-4 behind these 3 teams as well. The Eagles are still the favourite because of their schedule. It's a very easy schedule they've got, but I'd be shocked if they don't win at least 3, if not all 4 of their remaining games. This game against Seattle on Monday night next week is pretty big for them. If they get through that, then I think they will go throughout the season unbeaten. So it means that the Cowboys and the Niners are going to have to start winning games too. Dallas have now won 6 straight and head into 2 games on the road to 2 really tough opponents in Buffalo and Miami. So there's 2. They've won a statement game at home. Let's see how they now fare in those 2 games where home field advantage is just as strong as it is at AT&T Stadium. You've got the heat as a factor in Miami, and you've obviously got the Bills Mafia and the freezing cold temperatures in Buffalo in January, in December, which is another huge factor, and it's a massive home field advantage. So let's see how Dallas fare in those two environments. But for me, I think they are a Super Bowl contender, and I really think they are the best team in the league right now. And as a Philly, well, you've got 4 games now before the playoff ends to sort your form out. Obviously, after losing 2 straight, go and claim the NFC East title, and you may even claim the 1 seed and make the NFC go through Philadelphia and potentially have a rematch with Dallas in Philly and see what happens there. But obviously the season's not over. It's just I think the Cowboys have been a better team since about week 8, and that showed in this game for sure. Okay, we'll go over to Kansas City now, where the Bills won at Arrowhead again. A Kadarius Toney offensive offside call took away a touchdown within the 2-minute warning and gave Buffalo a historic win at Arrowhead. Toney went in with 1 minute 20 to go after an awesome play from Travis Kelce, seeing him in space and pitching the ball over to him. It's a shame it was called back, actually, because it's just genius, and I don't know why other teams don't do this. Because this is not the first time the Chiefs have been rewarded for not giving up on a play this season. Obviously, the Tyreek Hill fumble in Frankfurt, it was recovered and then pitched to another player, and then obviously went for a fumble recovery touchdown. And that very play is what won the Chiefs that game against Dolphins in Frankfurt. The AFC playoff pitch could be completely different had they not done that, and obviously it could be even more different had they'd be allowed to had Toney not been offside on that play. In doing so, Josh Allen became the first QB to beat Mahomes 3 times, and he was also the first one to beat him twice at Arrowhead before this game. Obviously, all 3 wins have come at Arrowhead, which is just mental, as Buffalo led this game from pretty much start to finish. On Friday, I said that I thought all the noise would be a distraction for the Bills, and in fact, it was the opposite. They used it as motivation, and they got behind their under-pressure coach. We'll see what happens with McDermott in regards to all these accusations from 2019. I don't really want to talk about it because it's quite a sensitive subject, but we'll see what happens. I don't know what happens with him. Maybe he has to walk away at the end of the season or something, but I don't know. The players are firmly behind this coach, so we'll see what happens there. And again, my theory came true in this one. If you can score 20 past the Chiefs' defense, you'll more than likely win the game. It's just their offense has just been horrible. Probably the second half of the season, if not second and third, now going into the fourth quarter of the season, their offense has just not been the same offense. And obviously it's a glaring lack of skill position players. Obviously Travis Kelce's had a bit of decline as well, which is got me wondering, is Taylor Swift a bit of a distraction? I don't know. Obviously there's this whole if she's in the stands, he'll play well thing. Obviously, he's not playing well when she's not being in the stands. But is it just not only for Kelce, but is it just the Chiefs as a whole? Obviously, does it just add even more pressure? Does it add, is it distracting for them? Honestly, because this Chiefs team, they've been this dynasty the whole time, and there's some weird things going on with this team that I just haven't seen in this era yet. It was weird after the game. Obviously, there's the big fight, and then Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones, were having a go at their own coaches at some point. Mahomes he reacted to this one incredibly badly. Obviously, he's normally quite a composed character. He's quite a humble guy. As a points, but from what we saw from Mahomes after the game, obviously that he just blew his head out, and it's just I don't. it looks like Mahomes is probably going to play his first ever road playoff game, which is mental, being 7 or 8 of his career now. They're 2 games back from Baltimore and a game, or actually probably half a game back from Miami now after the Dolphins lost on Monday night. But yeah, the Bills look great, and I do think the Bills will sneak into the playoffs. That Week 17 game against the Dolphins, I think the Dolphins will be playing for something, and Week 18 now. I think the Dolphins will be playing to win. I think the Bills will be playing to get into the playoffs as well. So I think that will be the Sunday night game that they flex on to NBC. But yeah, no, I think the Bills, they look really good. They've looked good since firing Ken Dorsey. I think Joe Brady's offenses look great. They got James Cook involved a lot. Obviously, he had a touchdown, but they also ran the ball pretty well as well. And yeah, for the Chiefs, their defense is really good, but their offense just stinks. It has done most of the season, really. And yeah, we'll see. Look, maybe these teams meet in the playoffs. Maybe the Chiefs get revenge again. But right now, I think Buffalo are probably the most complete team of the two, and we saw that in this game. Okay, we'll go over to the 6 p.m. window now, the feature game in the 6 p.m. window, and that is the Ravens-Rams, where Tylan Wallace punt return touchdown sealed the win for the Ravens as they outdrew the Rams in an overtime shootout in Baltimore. I thought it'd be closer than the spread, and it was, because it was 6 points rather than 7.5 points, but it was closer than that. It felt closer than that the entire game. It looked like the Rams would even win this game at points. It was such a fun one, this. Obviously, Sky definitely picked the right game into an early window, I thought. Both quarterbacks were excellent. They're 2 of my favourite QBs too, but they were awesome. I loved Lamar's drives. I'll take the lead with a minute to go. I thought he had a great day as well. 387 total yards, 316 passing, and 3 passing touchdowns. That throw to Zay Flowers as well on 3rd and 17 was just beautiful. It was so good in and out of the pocket of his legs as well, just moving around, especially on that final drive as well. He was creating everything, and that was I don't know if maybe if the Ravens get 1 seed, Lamar's an MVP candidate, because he certainly had an MVP type game in this one. He was unreal, but Matthew Stafford also played very good. He marched down the field afterwards and gave Lucas Havlicek the chance to take it to overtime with his kicking, and he did. He's been under pressure for the last couple of weeks. They brought in Mason Crosby to the practice squad, but they have Havlicek had a game to sort of seal his spot as the Rams kicker for the next few weeks in this one. He had a few really high pressure field goals, and he made all of them. And after 2-3 and outs to begin overtime, the game was quickly brought to a close with Wallace's 76-yard punt return for the touchdown. Yeah, the Ravens will be totally relieved they got through, because they can't really afford to drop too many and be the 1 seed right now, because their schedule coming up is they've got all winning records now. They've got Jacksonville, then San Francisco, then Miami, and then Pittsburgh. Obviously, AFC North game is no easy feat, is it? So there's 4 teams, obviously 3 teams with over 8 wins, and the Steelers, who are a division opponent as well. That'll be very difficult for them coming up. So obviously it is crucial they won this game to keep hold of the 1 seed, and and they will be encouraged by what they got from their offense in this one too. To pair their number 1 defense, there is such a better, more balanced offense unit this year. They just really are. They run the ball well. They always have run the ball well, but the way they're looking in the passing game is just really good to see. Zach Flowers. Zay Flowers went for 60 yards and had that touchdown as well. Odell Beckham Jr. in his revenge game against the Rams had 4 grabs for 97 yards and a TD. And Isaiah Likely, the tight end, had 83 yards, including a 54-yard touchdown too. As for the Rams, it would be a shame to not see them in the playoffs. I think the Packers losing last night helps them a bit. I'll get into that later on in the podcast. But they've been one of the best teams to watch this season. I love watching them throw to Stafford and Nakua, and I think they've got a way better chance at winning a playoff game than any of the NFC South contenders, in my opinion. Kyron Williams, excellent on the ground as well. The defense, the no-name defense that we keep talking about, we've played pretty well. Played pretty well the last couple of weeks too. Williams 25 carries for 114 yards. Kupp and Nakua combined for 199 yards and a touchdown. Touchdown was Kupp's, who had 115 yards on his own. Nakua with 84 and a few key catches as well. And without Tyler Higbee and the second string tight end as well, who got hurt, rookie Davis Allen stepped up with 4 grabs of 50 yards and a touchdown, which is nice to see, because I liked him in the draft at Clemson. So that was good to see. I just think with Baltimore, obviously, that's Miami losing, them winning this game just feels even better. And I think the Rams, they will be a playoff team, but they have got to win 2, if not Yeah, I think they've got to win 3 of their 4 remaining, unless there's a team. If we have teams in a wild card in the NFC with losing records, I think it'll be really funny. But yeah, I think they've got to win at least 2, probably 3 games now to reach the postseason. But they've got a pretty easy schedule compared to some of the other teams, like Seattle, for example, and Minnesota. And yeah, I think just an entertaining show all round. And I think both teams will be playoff teams. Not only one team I think will be playoff team in the NFC South, and the Bucs took the lead of the division with a late win over the previous leaders, the Atlanta Falcons. Baker Mayfield led a fourth quarter 12-play 70-yard touchdown, ending in the Cade Otton pass. In response to Desmond Ridder rushing in for a touchdown to take the lead late in the fourth quarter. It wasn't a great game for Baker, but he came up big when his team needed him, and he won the game. He was excellent in the fourth quarter. The Falcons' offense was much more balanced in this one. It obviously has been they've been heavily criticised because they're just not getting their skill position players involved. They got their skill position players involved in this one, but their quarterback probably lost in the game, in my opinion. They really should have won this one comfortably. They outgained Tampa Bay almost double yards-wise if you look at it. Instead, Ridder gave away 9 points. They scored a playoff of an interception that should have been a pick 6. The defender was actually marked down, but he did go in for the pick 6. And Ridder also gave up a safety in this loss too, so that's 9 points that he gave away. But at least they got Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson more involved in this loss, as well as one hell of a breakout game from Drake London. London had 172 yards with 10 catches, while Pitts had 57 yards and the only receiving TD of the game. And Robinson had 88 total yards and a rushing touchdown too. Obviously, I think Ridder's to blame, but he's not the only one as well. Younghoe Kuda missed 2 field goals. Obviously, if he made both of them, then the Falcons would have won this game as well. But if you're the Bucs, you needed to win this one. You're really encouraged by it. And you managed to do it whilst not at your best as well. We've seen the Bucs be much better this year than they were in this game. So the fact they won this and got through it would be very, very good news for them. And if you're a Falcons fan, if you're the Falcons GM, if you're a Falcons coach, you'll be kicking yourselves because, after this, your schedule is quite tough. You've obviously got the Saints to come up as well. You've got 3 teams in the South at 6 and 7 now. And I think it's going to come down to those games for Tampa Bay and Atlanta playing against the Saints week 16 and 17. They both have to play them. So I think it's probably going down to the very final week 18. It's all still to play for. We'll go over to a very tasty AFC wildcard, maybe the wildcard with the way the Jaguars have been playing in this game. But an AFC playoff implicating game where Joe Flacco was excellent in the Cleveland Browns win over for the fellow playoff contender Jacksonville Jaguars. He went 26 for 45 for 311 yards and 3 touchdowns, as well as 1 interception. And he had a lovely no-look pass in this one. Flacco did for TD to David Bell in the fourth quarter, something that Miami ran similar in the game before. And I love seeing teams take plays from each other. Trevor Lawrence, the other quarterback in this game, did in fact play. Obviously, he took the ankle sprain on Monday night, but he had a quick recovery and was in the lineup. But he did look hurt and he looked off rhythm and had a few turnovers in this game too. One sort of side note from this one before we get into the Browns: what a day for tight ends. David Njoku with 6 catches for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. Evan Engram for 11 grabs for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns too. Obviously both in the same draft class, both drafted in the first round at 2. Evan Engram at 23 by the Giants and Njoku at 29 by the Browns in 2017. But the Browns, they were in control for pretty much the whole game. They were excellent. Flacco looked really, really good. They had a 2-score lead for a lot of the game too, but they just couldn't put the game away, so it made the game come down to the very end, where they recovered an onside kick with just over a minute left. The Jags hung in there until the very end, ended up being a 4-point game, but the tone of the battle just cost them. Trevor Lawrence threw 3 interceptions. They also failed to convert a 4th down, and Parker Washington had a fumble in the second half too. But that being said, I think they'll be happy that not only did the fact that Houston and Indianapolis both lost, but they also still have a 1.5-point game lead because of that, and they also their red zone offense, which has been a struggle this year at points. They were 4 of 4 in the red zone, so they're very good at plugging, dialing in the red zone. But unfortunately, the turnovers in this game did cost them. The Browns are really good, and they probably with the way the schedule is looking, they've probably secured a playoff spot with this win as well. It's awesome to see. I'm loving this sort of career renaissance of Joe Flacco, you could say, as a backup the last couple of years, coming in and winning his team games, and hopefully they can play the Ravens in the playoffs, because I think that'd be a really cool game to be on TV there. Anyway, we'll go over to a all NFC North game now, where Justin Fields was on flames as the Bears frustrated their division rivals' quest for the number 1 seed. I am concerned about the Lions, I have to say it, because we're wondering, can they win on the road, in a tough or cold environment that's not a dome in the playoffs? There's so many times where the Lions have had a chance to sort of establish themselves in the elite of the entire league with the Niners, the Cowboys, and the Eagles, and every time they have faltered. For me, they are firmly the 4th best team in the NFC. I just can't trust them, especially their defense. And the way they've looked in both these Chicago games does not exactly fill me with confidence either. I think the last month or so, I'll give credit to the Browns. I think Luke Getsy has called them the Bears. I think Luke Getsy has called some awesome stuff. He probably isn't still going to get fired, but I think they've really had something on offense the last couple of weeks. It's just a shame it's come a month too late, really, if I'm being honest. I love that DJ Moore touchdown run to start the game. Fields is having his best year as well. He went for, again, 223 yards and a touchdown in the air, and 58 yards and a further TD on the ground. He was awesome. He was the Bears offense in this one as well as Moore. The two of them just took over this game. Fields is having his best year. I think it's going to be a really difficult decision for Ryan Poles as to what they do with him now, whether they move on or they keep him. Obviously, they're probably going to have the first overall pick as well. The defense has actually played well too recently as well. They made the Lions offense look shaky for a second time this season. The Lions had a 13-10 lead at half time, but they didn't score a single point in the second half. And think about how many points this Lions team has scored. It was the Bears defense. Yeah, I'm a little bit worried. The Bears took the lead off the Fields and DJ Moore combined for an epic 38-yard touchdown on a free play before Fields went in for another touchdown at the start of the fourth, and that was the game gone for the Lions. If they are to be serious contenders, I think they've got now a run to show us what they are with the final 4 games against teams with winning records. They've got a really tough schedule coming up. Obviously, they've pretty much got the division wrapped up. They're going to be the number 4 seed. I think it's pretty obvious there. But, please take these 4 games, again, winning records, go and show us what you are. And maybe we'll feel differently about you in week 18 and going into the wildcard round. The Bears actually aren't out of it either. They're hitting some form now, and while it's probably highly unlikely that they do reach a postseason, it's going to be a good learning experience for the future for them as well. Whether that's with or without Matt Eberflus is still to be seen, but he's now won back-to-back games as a head coach, which is an awesome feat for him. Fair play to the Bears, but the Lions, a little bit of an edge up there, as with Miami this week. Both of them are trending down. Okay, we'll go over to the Niners Seahawks game and all NFC West tie, where it was closer than I thought it would be, but that being said, the Niners still covered this one. And it's because of Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. They were just terrific for a second straight week as the Niners sweep the Seahawks for a second straight season now. Again, it's closer than I expected, especially after Drew Lock was announced as the starter, with Geno Smith missing for a groin injury that just sort of sprang up on us on Saturday. So we had no idea about that when we were doing the podcast on Friday. It was a one-score game for a lot of this. So the scoreline is a bit deceiving. I thought Drew Lock looked decent, but he did. I love the TD pass to Corey Parkinson. That was an awesome one. His second interception was bad, though, a big underthrow looking for DK Metcalf. Then a massive fight broke out after that as well in the aftermath, and DK Metcalf was ejected. But away from that, Brock Purdy, I had that big clip on him last week. I thought he was really good this week. That was more of an MVP performance than last week for me. He had some really nice throws. His average depth of target almost doubled as well from what it was last week. That wasn't an MVP performance from last week, I'm sorry. 5.9 yards average depth of target in a big game like that. It wasn't him that won that game for them. This week he was really good again, 9.7 yards this week. He made some awesome throws to Deebo, a couple to Ayuk as well. And George Kittle too. They were excellent. Purdy was excellent in this game, so fair play to him. If the Seahawks were to win this game when it was a one-score game, they needed to score when they had the ball, either side of half time. But unfortunately, they didn't score a point at all. And that's where the Niners went to go and take control of the game in the fourth quarter. And then the defense didn't allow a single point. And they coped well after the Brandon Ayuk fumble as well in the fourth quarter. And also, they coped well after the Ayuk fumble. Shut up shop, pretty much. If Seattle look like they did in this game next week against the Eagles, I think they've got a chance, if I'm being honest. Especially with it being in Seattle as well. You never know what's going to happen there. I think they need probably 3 of 4 wins to make the playoffs, but I think that's possible. With after this Eagles game, the schedule is significantly easier. So I think it is possible. And even if they don't win this Eagles game, I think they still got a chance to be in the playoffs, especially after the Packers lost in this week as well. And I think from what I saw yesterday, it's possible they make the playoffs for sure. They're getting healthier now, which is good too. And as for the Niners, they're now the favourites for the 1 seed, and they've already beaten Philly and Dallas. So, that they're in pretty good stead. Whether they could beat the Cowboys team we're seeing now is a different story. I don't think they probably can do. But, they're excellent. Absolutely excellent. Okay, we'll go over to Cincinnati, where the Bengals are in the playoff picture firmly now, even without Joe Burrow. Rookie running back Chase Brown and Joe Mixon starred, as well as quarterback Jake Browning, which was a big surprise in the last 2 games, as the Bengals beat the Colts to win 2 straight, which is really spiced up the NFC wildcard race, as I said. Brown went for 85 yards for scrimmage and a receiving TD, Mixon 97 yards on the ground and a touchdown, as well as the further 46 in the air. They had 210 yards between them, and Jake Browning was excellent as well. The offense as a whole looked decent again, but especially Browning, except for the pick 6. He was actually PFF's highest graded passer this week, building on an impressive game on Monday Night Football the week before. Just awesome stuff, obviously, for a backup quarterback to be literally the best quarterback in the league this week, according to a pretty reputable stats company. That's quite big stuff. And fair play to the Bengals defense as well. They stepped up in the second half. The Colts probably should have had the lead at halftime. It was 14-14, but Matt Gay missed a field goal and an extra point in the first half. And then the Colts didn't score the rest of the game. The Bengals took control of all 3 of their units, actually. And really have put themselves in the mix now, which is just mental to see. It's big as well for them, because in the wildcard race now, if they both have the same record, they both finish the same record, obviously if they're in a tie-breaking scenario, the Bengals will have the tiebreaker. So that's a huge win for them. And the Colts will be really disappointed to have lost in this manner too, especially with how Houston's afternoon went, and with the Jags losing as well. I think the Colts probably the Colts could have had they could have been tied at the lead of the AFC South at the end of the day, but unfortunately the Jags are still in the lead of that division. We'll go over to those Texans now, where they also dropped an egg. The 30-point second half performance from the Jets powered them to victory. The defense was straight in the normally high-scoring Houston offense. Obviously, after Nico Collins went out in the first half, he reached his 1,000-yard mark on the season, and a few seconds later, he did get knocked out of the game. They were already missing Tank Dell in this one too, and then Stroud went out of the game too with a concussion. So we'll keep you posted on Collins and Stroud, but I don't think they're going to play next week from what we've seen so far, unfortunately. This one was great because it was 0-0 at half time. It was one of 2 0-0s of this week, the first time that's happened since 1988 at half time. But Zach Wilson, he just took over in the second half. He was really impressive. He threw for 301 yards and 2 touchdowns to Randall Cobb and Breece Hall, with Xavier Gibson also getting a cool rushing touchdown too, and he's really been part of their offense the last couple of weeks. I don't know what Nathaniel Hackett's been doing differently the last 2 weeks, but I really wish he helped Zach Wilson out a bit more, because I always thought he'd had it tough, and he's had a few comeback wins too this season. He's clearly the best quarterback on that team, other than Rodgers, of course, but it doesn't count. He's not on the roster technically, so I thought Wilson was really, really good, and again his PFF grade reflects that. He was in the top 10 this week. But the big story though, obviously, is CJ Stroud, who is now in concussion protocol. Obviously, that means that his status for the game in Tennessee next week is up in the air. After the Tua situation last year, it's very much a case-by-case basis with concussions. A lot of quarterbacks miss games, missed the one game. A lot of if it happens during a game, a lot of the time they do miss a game. It was at the start of the season, but we've seen lots of Derek Carr recently has come back within a week and played. So we'll see what happens. We won't know if he starts playing until Friday, Saturday. To be honest with you, so just keep an eye out for the news during the week. Fair play to the Jets. Obviously, their season's over, but about next year, obviously, I guess that's the thing, really. And for the Texans, this one could prove costly when we get to the end of the season in a month's time. Okay, we'll go over from the AFC to the NFC now, and the NFC South, where the Saints got it done in a must-win game to stay in touch with the NFC South title race, but the offense was not good again. Derek Carr was removed from concussion protocol in time to play for this one, but he struggled in it. He wasn't great. He had 37 passing yards and an interception in the fourth quarter before hitting A.T. Perry, deep with 6 minutes to go. That's horrific. Two touchdowns in the final 6 minutes that were enough to steal the game, but their offense was far from good, and the Panthers were terrible offensively in this game too. As I said, Dennis Allen's defense against the Panthers offense were awesome, and Darren Rizzi's special teams made a play when needed for a touchdown as well, blocking the punt. Allen's defense had some big sacks in the red zone. It didn't allow a single point after the Carr interception in the first minute of the first half, too. I think that's the thing, really. The Saints weren't great, but they got the game done, and that's all that matters now. And they are still in the title race of the NFC South. As I said, also the Panthers have just looked horrendous in offense. Bryce Young had an interception called back. At the time, he would have been 1-9 for 18 yards and an interception to start the game, but it was ruled a fumble in the end instead. But either way, he was terrible. The defense was okay for the Panthers, obviously stopping the Saints offense, but unfortunately, the last couple of weeks the defense has been good, but their offense is just it's just non-existent. Unfortunately, the Saints obviously will be relieved that the Bucs beat the Falcons too. They played both of those teams in the final 2 weeks of the season, so the NFC South is going to go down to those two games. But I stand by it. They are the most talented team in this division. They just need to show it by scoring points for us, please. I feel sorry for Dennis Allen as well, because he's probably going to get fired, and his defense has been excellent again. So but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Saints clear house, fire Allen and Carmichael as well after this season. Okay, we'll go over to an all AFC West game now, where Russell Wilson and the Broncos defense had a fun time of it, and they come back from LA with a winning record. And they're still on the outside looking in, but this is one of the games they needed to win in their hunt for a playoff space, a first playoff berth for the Broncos since 2016. And the defense was all over the Chargers' offensive line, as I said. And that's the offensive line as well. That's supposed to be really, really good, one of the best in the league. They got to the quarterback 6 times, 4 of them being Justin Herbert. Jonathan Cooper also had an interception of Herbert as well, and Herbert also fumbled, which was recovered by McMillan for a touchdown. That was brought out for a touchdown as well. So unfortunately Herbert did give away quite a few points in this one. But again, I don't blame him. And as of all Broncos games, the offense did what was required offensively, and they got it done. But there were a few flashes of the old Russell Wilson. I loved his pass to Cortland Sutton. He also had did some great stuff with his legs too. He was also PFF's highest graded QB. Jake Browning was the highest graded passer, but Wilson was the highest graded quarterback in the overall grade. Obviously he's added the run game helps that as well as not throwing a pick six. As for the Chargers, well, obviously there are concerns around Justin Herbert's finger injury. He was replaced by Easton Stick in this one, and he's already been ruled out for Thursday Night Football against the Raiders. Whether he plays the rest of the season or not is unknown. But if I'm the Chargers, I just sit him. The season's over. Get a high draft pick. And who they draft is another question. They've got a pretty stacked roster. It's just they've not been able to get the best out of this roster. So I think they just need a bit of a reset, and that's firing Brandon Staley and also firing Kellen Moore, whose offense sucked again. If they give him the head coaching job, I just feel so sorry for Justin Herbert. I just want him to have. I just want them to clear completely fresh slate with probably a veteran head coach, just to a veteran offensive head coach, someone like Jim Harbaugh, just to it really helped that man, because unfortunately he's not had a fun time of it, since his rookie year, really. They scored their first touchdown since week 12 in the fourth quarter as well, which is just madness. Their offense has just been horrific recently. The defense was good again, and I stand by it. I would fire Staley for previous years, but not this year. But unfortunately, I think that is the grave's already been dug, unfortunately. But this year's failure by the Chargers is not Brandon Staley's fault by any means, but it's just the way it's gone, unfortunately. And then we'll finish up the Sunday slate with the Vikings beating the Raiders 3-0. Absolutely mental game, this. No points until within the 2-minute warning. I was watching it with everyone on Sunday night, and it just looked more and more likely that we'd see a 0-0 for the first time since 1943. And the first ever 0-0 game to go to overtime too, because back then they didn't have overtime. And obviously the NFL-AFL merger happened after that as well, so it was a very, very long time ago. The Vikings lost Justin Jefferson to a chest injury in this one early on in his return. That was the most notable thing that happened in this game until the fourth quarter. If I'm the Vikings now, I just sit down Jefferson for the rest of the year. Obviously, I don't think they're going to get playoffs anyway. Spoiler alert. But they had no offense. They made the switch from Josh Dobbs to Nick Mullins at QB in the fourth quarter, and shortly afterwards they got to the red zone and then got 3 points through a Greg Joseph field goal. Brian Flores' defense then forced a turnover with Ivan Pace Jr. getting the interception. He had a great game as well, he had a sack too, and then they knelt out, and it became the first 3-0 scoreline since the Pittsburgh-Miami game in 2007, where Pittsburgh won. But it'll be interesting to see who starts for the Vikings this week. Obviously, Dobbs has struggled the last couple of weeks, and Mullins was a bit more steady in there, so maybe they go for him. But either way, as I said, I don't think they're looking great heading into a tough final stretch too. They've got to play the Lions twice, and I'm not really confident they're a playoff team, if I'm being honest, especially if they're without Jefferson for an extended period. Not entirely confident about them. And then we'll go over to the other shock on Monday Night Football. The Green Bay Packers losing to the New York Giants, where Tommy DeVito led the Giants to a fourth quarter comeback over the Packers. I'm sure his agent, who went viral for his outfit last night, will be very, very happy by that, because he was really good, and I like what I've seen for a literal nobody before the season. He's been the best of the three quarterbacks to play for the Giants this year, and he had a lovely throw to Wandale Robinson on the sideline on a flea flicker to really kick-start a good second half for the Giants offense. Heading into this one, I had a feeling the Giants defense would be able to keep this one low scoring, and they did. They were really good in this game. Kayvon Thibodeau making a couple plays as always. Obviously Dexter Lawrence being there as well was brilliant being back for them was brilliant as well. Boyo Kariki was excellent too. The Packers were on top in the first half, but a muff punt by Keyshawn Mixon really changed momentum in the third quarter, and the Giants just took over after that. Although they had a 2-score lead, but there was a bit of drama at the end. They were up 2 scores early in the fourth, but they gave up 2 field goals, and then Saquon Barkley fumbled. So it set up a spicy finish after a long run. Saquon fumbled. Jordan Love found Malik Heath for a touchdown with minutes ago, but Jaden Reed was stopped on a 2-point conversion end around that kept the Giants only 1 point behind the Packers. And then another awesome throw from Tommy DeVito to Wandale Robinson set up a game-winning Graham Gano field goal that won the game for the New York Giants as time expired, almost simultaneously as the Dolphins dropped the egg against the Titans. Okay, we'll start with the Packers. I wouldn't probably panic if I was a Packers fan. You've still got a very favourable schedule coming up. I still think you're a playoff team. But obviously it's going to be more difficult now you have lost this game. And then if you're a Giants fan, I bet you're wondering how to feel. You've won 3 in a row, and you've probably prevented yourself from a high draft pick. But you're also somehow a game back from the playoffs, as are the Bears as well. So you're still in it at 5-8, and you've got a pretty easy schedule coming up. So both you and the Bears. So if one of those teams sneak in, and fair play to them, really. But I don't see that happening. But no, while the NFL's brilliant, because you're not a bad team for long. Bad teams correct themselves at the end of the season, and obviously, we'll see what the Giants Bears are next year. Probably the Bears have a new coach, but they both come on late in the season, and they've really spiced up the week. They've really spiced up this week by beating 2 teams that before the day, obviously the Lions are still in the playoff position, but the Packers are no longer in the playoff picture. They've really spiced the day, so fair play to both those teams. And that is it. That has been week 14 fully recapped. And as I said at the start of the podcast, I think it was the best week yet. It was absolutely excellent. The amount of shocks we had. We've learned so much more about these teams too, especially the teams at the top of the league that are going to be in the playoffs come January. Just thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for coming along the ride with me. I've really enjoyed breaking down the games for you. On a personal note, obviously the Dolphins losing that game last night was very hurtful, and it was a tough one to take. But I'm still confident they can win a playoff game, and that's for the first time since 2000, which is just a very long. Obviously, as Dan Orlovsky said last night, it's the longest streak in the AFC. So we'll see if that happens or not. But the league has well and truly been shook up, I'd say, after week 14. I will see you on Friday for our week 15 preview. There's only 4 more of them left to go now. Wow, the season's really coming to a close. This has been a 14 Yards NFL podcast. I've been your host, Sam Moores, and I will see you next time.